Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search specializes in helping small law firms in Texas hire lawyers and build great teams. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel here back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. All right, before we get into this episode, a quick note that in your feed right now is our latest Movie Verdicts episode, breaking down Legally Blonde, with myself and Robert Callahan as always, and then my wife Adrienne Hare making her first appearance on the show. We talk about law school admissions videos, the Luke Wilson cross-examination, the bend and snap, and so much more, so don't miss it. It's in your feed right now. Also, Varsity Search has been retained by a high-end litigation boutique in Dallas, and we are looking for a 3 to 5 year associate attorney. So if you are maybe in a large law firm or another litigation boutique and are ready to start taking depositions, second chairing trials, getting lots of hands-on experience and client contact, all while doing sophisticated work with other talented lawyers, this might be the right opportunity for you. Those with a business or accounting background would be of particular interest for this role. So if you or someone you know might be interested, please email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com, or go to varsitysearch.com/lawyers, and you can book a time to visit with me into my calendar. Okay, speaking of Dallas, we are going back to Big D for today's show with our special guest, Stephanie Curtis. Stephanie is president and shareholder at Curtis Castillo, and her practice focuses on bankruptcy and business law. Stephanie spent nearly a decade in large, prominent law firms before striking out on her own, and she has built a practice that has earned her and her firm countless awards and recognitions. Now, we recorded this conversation on April 9th, so keep that in mind as we discuss COVID-related matters, as, of course, things shift with this thing over time. All right, with that, let's hop into our conversation with Stephanie Curtis on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. All right, Stephanie Curtis joins us now. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and I know it's a crazy time, so I do want to take a few minutes off the top just to hear from you about how the current climate with the coronavirus and everything else is impacting your firm and just your clients and everyone kind of in your orbit. Let's start with just your firm and kind of your people, you and your attorneys, your staff.
Right.
What's the workplace been like over these last couple of weeks?
Right. So starting with that, we are not going to work. We are following the Dallas County shelter-in, stay-at-home order.
Yeah.
We are working remotely from our homes.
Yeah.
And I'll say a few things about that.
Yeah, please.
At this time, it is so critical that everybody creates a good working environment in their home.
Yeah.
So I will tell you how lucky I am. I created a workspace for my 12-year-old daughter just before all this happened.
Oh, man. And you stole it from her.
Because you hit, yeah. So you hit 6th grade and it's like, oh my God. Bets are off. It's serious work.
Yeah.
And so I made this beautiful little workspace for her. I know you can't see me, but behind me is a Smartboard that fits the entire wall there. And it's very clean. It's quiet. Everybody knows that this used to be her workspace. And if you entered it, there was a very good chance that you would get yelled at. So I have commandeered this for me. And so again, I have a Smartboard. I can do meetings on it. I can have, newsreels running, reports, have statutes pulled up and all of that kind of thing. I have a large monitor here. And then of course my laptop, we remote into our firm's remote access, server, which is located downtown Dallas in the Bank of America Plaza. for, pulling client documents back and forth and so on. All of our attorneys are doing that. Our office manager is assisting, and it's really pretty fabulous.
Good.
The other thing I will say about working from home right now is that you do need to have a set, just like you would at work, a set schedule.
Yeah.
Wear clothes, focus on your work.
Right.
So prioritize. And that's what I've done. Today, I'm going to work on marketing. I've gotten 4 or 5 emails from people that want me to do some different things marketing wise. I'm going to focus on that.
Yeah.
This afternoon, I'm going to work on, client matters. Got a few clients that have questions about maybe billing, about maybe, this and that and the other. So you're just not all haphazard. You really can control your workspace, control your schedule, prioritize just like you would in your office. And then the other thing, Daniel, is go into your kitchen. Don't work in your kitchen. Don't work in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Treat it like a home office. And I'm absolutely in love with this. Go in your kitchen, make lunch, have something to eat.
Yeah.
I've never done that before. Right. I've never eaten lunch at work.
Right.
So there's a lot of really neat things to it. 2 of my attorneys have small children at home. My daughter's actually homeschooling away because I've taken over her office. But you can go say hi to your kids, pet your dog. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. But come back in your office, get back to work. You've got your task list. Stay organized, stay on top of it. And the main reason, besides the fact you will be accomplishing much needed tasks, you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like, gosh, I'm not getting where at home. You still have a structure. You get your work done. In the evening, make a nice dinner with your family. Yeah. And so I know you're not asking me this right now, but I think this could change potentially the way we work going forward. And I know we can touch on that more as we go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we were already having the conversation in not just the legal community, but just in work in general about working from home, or at least working with flexible arrangements, that kind of thing was already a conversation and a lot of experimentation around it before all this. And this will only accelerate it, I'm sure. Well, and I should admit to you, since you confessed to stealing from your daughter her room, her workspace, I also have a nice desk here that was commandeered from my daughter's room.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because we just moved her into her own room. She and her sister were sharing a room, and about 3 months ago, we moved her into her own room. And in part of that was we gave her a desk, chair, all this. She's a second grader. And when this all happened, it was like, well, we don't have any. I've got to pull the desk in because I don't have it. We don't have another desk, and sorry.
Right.
So they're homeschooling at the dining room table out there.
Right. Which works.
Which works.
But let me back up a minute about the practice and how. So years and years ago, I started at a large firm, Haynes and Boone, and then from there I was recruited to Jones Day, Revis and Poe, which at that time was the largest firm in the world. So I have big law.
Yeah.
I started my boutique firm in 1998, which was only yesterday.
Of course.
But I decided probably 6 years ago or so, that I was not going to come home and work at night like I used to every night. So I took a computer in my hard drive out of my house. And I used my iPhone and my iPad at night to prevent me from being the workaholic that I am 24/7, focusing on family, focusing on, walks around the blocks, things like that.
Yeah.
So when this hit, I'm like, I need a computer.
That's right. That computer that we took out of here. It seemed like a good
idea for a long time because I can go to the office and grab what I need to and all of that.
Yeah.
So as you're saying, now we're all converting back to, having a full-blown computer, big screen monitors, all the types of things that we have nowadays. The other thing I want to add is when I was at Jones Day, and we all had laptops and we were all traveling.
Sure.
In California, New York, I was barely in Dallas.
Right.
We had to take a flash drive right, of all the documents that we thought we were going to be needing or working on.
Right.
So crazy to think back that far.
Yeah.
And we would stick it in our laptop and then do the documents, and you could send them in and so on. Well, now we can remote right into our server. We can go to every client file. I can get any type of information in our huge server that our firm has. Yeah. And so it really makes this a much more pleasant process.
It does. It does. It is. And in so many ways, my wife and I were talking about this recently, just how fortunate we are in some ways to be going through this at a time when we have all this technology. I mean, I can't imagine like 15, 20 years ago to be sheltered at home nationwide for a period of weeks without all the things that we've become accustomed to.
Right.
I'm sure we would have dealt with it. We wouldn't know what we're missing, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine now.
Right. And my firm, luckily, everyone's probably much better than me, even technically astute, IT astute. They are so fast. They are, just constantly are doing Dropbox and Skypes. And we've already been doing that in a firm. Right. So I probably had the largest learning curve in terms of, moving fast. But in this day and age, we're practically paperless anyway.
Yep. Yeah.
And so we get everything by email. Sometimes I pick up the phone. I'm like, is this thing on? Is this thing working?
Yeah, no.
Why are we paying for a phone system? Right. Because I'm joking, of course. We have conference calls and Skype calls through it. Yeah. But everything comes in through email. You pull the document, you pull it onto Word, you make the changes, you PDF it, you save it, you send it back. And, the thing we had to train ourselves on as technology advanced over the last few years is be sure you put it back in our server so people just don't have email, important client information all in their email.
Yeah.
But that's where it started.
Yeah.
So if push comes to shove and I can't remote, sometimes the server's down, just like any other type of technology, we all can go to our email or send and receive an email. I mean, we cook with gas all day long because of the efficiencies that, have come to our fingertips over the last, half of a decade. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I do want to transition and hear a little more about your practice. Let our audience hear about what you all do. And you mentioned you were in Big Law, and then now you've had your own firm for a number of years in a boutique environment. Talk about that and what you guys are up to, the clients you serve, and let us hear about that.
Okay. So I did start a boutique Chapter 11 bankruptcy reorganization firm, which was my specialty at Haynes and Boone and Jones Day.
Yeah.
And I started the firm with a partner named Mark Castillo, and his specialty was the same at Baker Botts. So we both came from big firm. Yeah. We then hired another associate who also came from a very large firm, and he had been in New York and so on. The reason why I reference that is because we do put out a very high quality, high level, highbrow product for such a small firm.
Yeah.
We have 6 attorneys, and so it's very manageable. We can all talk all the time about whatever we need to talk to. We don't have the red folder program. I don't know if anybody out there has seen Ford versus Ferrari.
It's a good one. If you haven't, you should see it.
There are many amazing lines. I can't memorize all of them. I can't even memorize 2. But the scene that jumped out to me the most was the red folder scene. And so Carol Shelby goes up to meet with Mr. Ford, sitting in the waiting room. And here's this important man, Carol Shelby, who's going to change the life of, Ford forever, and has a strong passion for it. And he's waiting for 2 hours to meet with Mr. Ford.
Right.
And they're in there just, whatever they're doing. Okay. And he sees this red folder. And so when he finally gets asked to go into Mr. Ford's office, Mr. Ford's asking him things like, well, how are you going to make this work? How would we ever put this together? We have 90 days. How could we ever beat Ferrari and build the fastest race car in the world? And Carol Shelby says, well, I'll tell you one thing. We're not going to do it based on the way you handled that red folder. And so the scene before was this red folder shows up from somebody down 10 floors below, which would already been passed to, people on 10 other floors. And then the folder shows up and goes on the receptionist desk. And then the secretary of Mr. Ford comes out and gets it. But she has to hand it to the red folder assistant. And then he takes it into Mr. Ford's office. So the point is that in my boutique firm, we don't have a red folder process.
Right.
We have a very streamlined, get to the bottom of it. Everybody's efficient. Everybody's hands-on. Everybody's got to make it work, and everybody does everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the big difference from big law to my small boutique. From big law, you take invaluable, immeasurable training. And I would advise anybody out there, to get with the smartest and brightest people that they can as they're going up their training process. Then it becomes, how do I want to practice? What type of environment do I want to practice within?
Right.
And so our firm is small, but we are very efficient, and we just don't need 12 people to touch one folder. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that feels very successful to a lot of people because they got to actually accomplish something instead of being part of maybe a bigger team, a bigger committee, where you didn't really get any input, but you got to listen and you got a lot of training. So there's pluses and minuses of both of those environments. What we're experiencing right now, we are seeing a major influx of bankruptcy cases.
I was going to ask you, I wondered about that. Yeah.
Right. So we are seeing Chapter 11s, which are reorganization cases. Those are mainly businesses that reorganize. Yep. And then we're seeing a lot of consumer cases, which typically fall in the Chapter 7 category for individuals. So we're working as hard as we can to get those processed as quick as we can. The other thing we're experiencing, Daniel, is the change in the laws. Every morning you wake up and there is a new statute. It could be state, it could be federal. Just this week alone, I'd say in the last 10 days, the comptroller has come out with new legislation. The state of Texas has come out with new legislation that concerns the comptroller, and that talks about state taxes that have to be collected. We don't collect taxes as a service provider, as a professional, but restaurants have to pay exorbitant taxes on liquor sales and food. Yep. Any other type of, most any type of, widget, whatever you're purchasing. So there are a lot of helpful information for businesses at the comptroller site. That's something that's going to be read, analyzed, digested, know about it. I never say this, but recently I have had to say this. Just know enough about it to be dangerous. Because we're not trying to mislead clients, but it's coming out so fast and so rapidly. And then the statute that passed yesterday gets changed tomorrow. Know just enough about it to be dangerous so that you can say, hey, there's a comptroller statute that just came out. The IRS just extended tax filing deadlines. The IRS just changed the deadline to file franchise taxes. Yeah. It's actually a state issue. Yeah,
right.
But those are not going to be due now until the IRS deadline to file your federal income tax return, which at this particular point in time is July. Now, at the end of April, they could extend that to September. Yeah. So staying abreast of, and I have told my people, despite what I said before about walking away from your computer, having dinner, enjoying your home work life, we also have to be reading 24/7. Yeah. Yeah. And staying on top of things that are coming out so that you can just at least be aware and let your clients know we need to look at this. They can look at it themselves and know right away whether they qualify or it's helpful. With the guidance of counsel, we can walk them through it. Right. But we have to be aware of the ever-changing, statutory assistance that's coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's amazing and crazy how it's all happening so fast. And you're absolutely right. Well, it's your practice area, especially bankruptcy, business bankruptcy, is one that we're going to be dealing with now over these coming months, just with the economic slowdown that we've really forced ourselves in to stay healthy. But nevertheless, it's happening. So, well, I want to ask you about young associates and how they can, or things they need to be thinking about, really working on to become, the best versions of themselves as young lawyers as they start to grow in the profession. What's something that you learned as a young lawyer? You mentioned the training that you got at Haynes and Boone and then Jones Day. What are a couple of things maybe that you learned as a young lawyer that have stuck with you and really been part of who you are now as you've grown in your practice?
Thanks, Daniel. So I would say the number one thing is preparedness. Yeah. And how you always have that dream. I know we all have dreams like, and everybody has a little bit different version of, I knew I had a class in college, but I couldn't find the building. And I knew I'd enrolled, but I never went. Why did I never go? And I heard there's a test, and your dream just goes on and on and on that you can't find the place for the test. Or, people that have other versions of, these anxiety things where they can't, get what they need to get done.
Right.
The reason why is because you were not prepared. And so what I learned as a young lawyer, first lesson was always be prepared. You can't wing it. You're a young lawyer. Know who your audience is. Know what the issues are. Predict what might come up in this meeting. Predict what the court is going to ask you. I used to always make scripts. I would stand in my bathroom and just go over and over and over and over and over. I was preparing and doing things to get ready to leave the house. But once you have a script, which I think is important to start with, you can't just free fall.
Yeah.
Be ready to move away from that script. You're prepared. Move away from that script. You're going to take questions, kind of like you're doing to me. You're going to take questions from the judge in his own order, whatever he thinks is important. You can't drone on and on and on about things he already knows. So my number one thing I think I would tell young lawyers is always be prepared. And along those lines, if you go in to speak to a senior attorney or partner, they ask you to come in, be prepared. This sounds crazy. Have a notepad. Have a pen or pencil handy. You cannot imagine the number of times that young law clerks or young attorneys come in to my office or my other, attorney's office, busy working, or even you ask them to attend a client meeting or a conference call. And so, since we're being very candid now about the way we want, young lawyers to behave, I will tell you my most humiliating moments as a senior lawyer is to invite a younger lawyer who is eager for the training, excited for the training, wants to be involved, and they walk into either a deposition, a face-to-face meeting with a client, a face-to-face meeting with opposing counsel, or even an important conference call where there are many people involved, and they do not bring something to take notes on. And when important things are being said, they don't write it down.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, if you're first chairing it, your hands are, you're like a one-arm paper hanger. You're trying to, gather your thoughts. You're trying to respond to questions. You're doing a lot of things that prevents you from just taking notes.
Right.
So that those notes can be reacted on after the call. There's your 3 research assignments. You just wrote them down.
Yeah.
So being proactive, being a forward thinker, being a predicting what's going to happen, what are the next steps. Don't react.
Yeah.
Be proactive and predict.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, as you're talking, the word that kept popping in my head was anticipate, to be able to anticipate whether it's, like you said, the judge's questions that he might have for you, what the conference call might generate in terms of a research assignment or something important, just being able to anticipate what those things are. And yeah.
And I'll say this about that too. I think a lot of times what prevents young attorneys and even sometimes more mid-level attorneys from being more proactive and anticipating is anxiety. They've never sat in a deposition before. They've never been on a conference call with 20 people. They've never worked on this particular type of case with these issues. Right. They're younger or maybe mid-level. And so that anxiety prevents them from the confidence.
Yeah.
Just forget all the fact that maybe this is your first rodeo. Forget that. Got to start somewhere. Have confidence. Go in and just treat it like you would treat anything else. Anticipate what the next steps are going to be and just handle those.
Yeah. And
if you don't make a few blunders or a few mistakes or don't have to come back and ask your supervisor for questions, you're not learning. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good. Well, as you go through the process of hiring young lawyers, as I know you have over the years, what are maybe a couple of things that you're looking for in the resume, in a cover letter, or maybe what are some things you're looking at that are maybe red flags that immediately get tossed out? What are some of those things that you're looking at?
I'm so glad you asked me that because this is a huge, huge issue And it's one of those things where you assume by now it's been talked about, everybody knows, but it's shocking how many people don't pay attention to it and don't think about it and understand how important it is, and that's social media. When I get a resume and that resume fits the grades we're looking for, the background we're looking for, the experience. Perhaps they're a brand new lawyer and they've never practiced but graduated. We look for how the resume is set up, typos, their ability to articulate in a cover letter. For example, we got a cover letter the other day from a young gentleman, and he had referred to another law firm. He obviously was sending out mass resumes with cover letters, and bless his heart, I get it. People are trying to find a job, but my partner was very elegant about the way he addressed it to this gentleman. And he said, we are not needing any new young attorneys or clerks at this point, but we'd love to keep this on hand. In the future, you might want to delete the name of the firm you're sending it to prevent you from sending the wrong firm's name in a cover letter, because those are the kind of details that we're going to look for when you hire a young lawyer. Is your footer right? Is your header right?
Yeah.
Did you date the document correctly? Those minor details are what we look for in the young lawyers to catch. You don't need a 30-year lawyer to catch the fact that this header is from an old document that you pulled and manipulated to fit this situation. But back to the social media point, the other thing besides reading what they send us is I go straight to social media.
Yeah.
I go to Facebook first, because most kids, if they haven't really been working, might not have a LinkedIn account.
Right.
They certainly don't have Twitter, but they likely have Facebook and or Instagram. And so I look at Facebook as really your face to the world. Mm-hmm. And, Instagram can be a little bit more, so it's more social to me, I guess I would say. Right. Or maybe artsy, more look what I made for dinner. Look. Yeah. You can look at fashion and the Kardashians, whatever you want to look at on Instagram. But on Facebook, that's your face, and that's your reputation, and that's your integrity. And we can all be fun and joking and put a fun picture of, guys on a golf trip, or, you're on a girls trip, or, you're, doing something fun with your kids in the yard. But please do not put anything inappropriate. Yeah. Please do not put inappropriate pictures of you. Please do not post things that have really bad grammar in the heading. And again, it's kind of how the Supreme Court, one of the standards they use. You know it when you see it. Yeah. I look at the Facebook page, and if I feel that this person has less than a really balanced lifestyle, integrity, reliable confidence. Do I look at it and say, yeah, this guy likes to go fishing, and he has all these hobbies. He likes to hike. He really looks like a well-rounded, human being. I like that. Yeah. That's fabulous.
Right.
And so it tells that the people have hobbies, they have outside interest, and they're a full-rounded person, they're balanced. You can learn about their family, all of that. That's why they put it on social media, on Facebook, so everybody can see. But what I don't want to see are, jokes that have vulgarity in them. Yeah. That does not exude confidence. The other thing that can happen when a client hires our firm, they might go to the Facebook page of the attorneys that we've put on that resume or that, proposal to do their case. Right. And what if they're seeing things that they don't think are appropriate? So if you are a professional, if you are wanting to build your reputation, start now. Go back to your Facebook page, delete anything that is not really give somebody a very positive first impression of who you are and what you're trying to become.
Yeah, I think it's well said. There are a couple things I want to follow up on with that, just from the standpoint of we see these, unfortunately, more often than you might think. I'm talking to the audience now that we, whether it's in recruiting or before when I was in career development at Baylor, I mean, we see this stuff happen. Unfortunately, whether it's the cover letter, not changing the firm name, which I would say even beyond that, it's not taking the time to cater the cover letter to the firm or the position you're applying to, because
exactly.
Even just switching the names out, even getting the firm name correct, if it's a standard letter that's being sent out to every firm, a lot of people, if they take the time to really read that cover letter, are going to know it's a standard letter that wasn't written for this purpose for this firm. And so being able to cater a cover letter, which I know is tedious, especially if you're doing a lot of applications, but it really is important. And it does keep you from making the major error of misaddressing it as well. But then on the social media, I mean, that's another one where we've unfortunately seen that come up. And I mean, if even if you're not deleting everything or locking it down and not allowing everyone just to see your stuff too is another thing that is you could do. And I think everybody should have a LinkedIn profile. It can be basic. It doesn't have, it's not something you have to post all the time to, like maybe some of the other platforms are, but I think it does kind of serve as a visual resume for people and another place that comes up on Google at the top. So people are searching for you as a candidate, then, that's a place that you want to have something on, including a nice professional picture, because LinkedIn's a good place now for professional development and professional social networking. And so it's all great stuff and advice.
Right. Let me say something about LinkedIn. That was going to be my next thing. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Even if you aren't a working professional, set up a LinkedIn page. It has your degree, where you went to school, who you're networking with, and have your picture, as you said, be professional.
Yeah.
There's a company that we're working with, and I won't say who it is, but it's a vendor, and the representative for the vendor that we deal with has her picture on all of her emails that we see. This individual is sitting in her car with sunglasses on her head. And that's the picture she decided to use to send to every single one of her clients. And it's not like, oh, she's a race car driver. I get it. Perfect. No, she's supposed to be in the office handling some major issues for her firm as a vendor. Oh, man. So please do not make your LinkedIn picture, with a tank top and unshaven and, sitting in your lounge chair with your remote control. I mean, it just shows effort.
Yeah.
It shows how much you do care about taking next steps. And it indicates to us as employers, whether rightfully or wrongfully so, it indicates to us whether you're willing to really polish your work, yourself, your presentations, everything that goes along with what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. We have a couple of topics we haven't addressed yet, and I know you've got some thoughts on several of these, so I want to just leave it open to you. What would you want to share with our young lawyers listening here that we haven't already touched on, or you want to go deeper in?
I guess what I want to talk about is the way the courts are handling things right now, and this dovetails back to what you said about how you see the practice going and all of that. So since all of this COVID has set in, the courts are essentially closed. And when I say essentially closed, they are only taking up essential matters, which are criminal magistrates are hearing some things. I had a list here, but it's on the Texas Supreme Court website if you'd like to go to that. And
I think like family violence type stuff is another
family violence, mental health. Yep. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so and protective orders. So if you go in there, you better mean it, and there better really be a problem, because the courts are going to get upset that you're just trying to gamesmanship. So I teach my lawyers integrity, honesty, but gamesmanship. You've got to be strategic in representing your clients, and you've got to outthink the other side. That's fine. It's like a chess game. It's honest. So all of that having been said, this new way of practicing law that we are doing right now every day requires the utmost ethical responsibility of the lawyer to try to work something out with the other side.
Yeah.
Now, that's not always easy as it sounds, because you have a client, and the client might be very stubborn, isn't the right word, but very passionate. And it's not that we're not passionate, but you kind of see, you're a little bit more forward thinking, and you can see the best way for you to resolve this is, let's reach an agreement on a couple points you could totally live without if we can get the couple points that you really, really must have.
Right.
And that is what lawyers are required to do right now. Submit agreed orders, not try to set court hearings because you will not get one. Yeah. I love it. I love being in court. I love, all that entails. But if lawyers on each side of the transaction understand, you're not going to run over there and get a decision. You and I are going to have to work this out. And so it's an alternative dispute resolution that's been forced upon us involuntarily. Right. And I love it. And I think the young lawyers who have been trained to, not give in, fight tooth and nail, those types of environments, which are correct for some cases, not for all cases. Yeah. That really can't happen now, period.
No.
And I think it's going to create a lot better results for businesses and individuals if they can reach some agreements, get the court order so you have something that everybody's going to live by. And so young lawyers are going to be learning that. We had a meeting yesterday with one of our vendors that does our depositions, court reporters, and depositions are on Zoom. So you can't say, you can't run over there and file a motion to quash or say, well, we never could set up our deposition because of COVID. Well, no one can leave the house. So what's better than having a Zoom deposition?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so all those kinds of things that again, I think are going to change the way we practice and work going forward. I hope they do.
Yeah.
That things can be accomplished maybe a bit more efficiently. Right. And the technology, which I know the younger people have. I was going to mention something quickly. I had a case last year with an older gentleman who was lovely to deal with, but he'd never opened an email. Right. And he had his assistant, and she had to literally print his emails out and present him on his desk every day. And I was just like, okay, I get hundreds of emails a day. What that would be a literal nightmare. So people like that are not able to do anything. And I'm not suggesting anybody listening to this would be that archaic.
Right.
But we can do better as a society by working things out. We can be more efficient through using technology, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for young lawyers to become experts in these different ways of doing things. They're probably already technologically more capable or adaptive to that anyway, but now there's this real need that's pressing for it. And so, that's exactly right. Well, Stephanie, I know you're crazy busy during these times. And so it means a lot to me and to all of us that you were willing to spend some time with us. I really appreciate you being on the show today. We have a few rapid fire questions to end our time. So if you're ready for those, we'll launch into those.
Go ahead.
All right. Name one trait or characteristic you most want to see in an associate.
Work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What habit has been key to your success?
I think I said this early, preparedness.
Yep, you did. Favorite app or productivity tool?
I'm sorry, favorite what?
Favorite app or productivity tool?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, this is kind of weird for me to say. Crazy, isn't it, for me? My banking app. I can see my firm's account. I can transfer money. I can pay my employees on my phone.
Yeah.
I can pay vendors on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't, it's amazing how, these office, and it's gorgeous office that we have and all the staff and all of that. You can look at your phone and pretty much do whatever you want to do. And there are a million apps. There are some apps that are, I think, marketed inappropriately and don't really do what they say.
Yeah.
But just be able to, take care of the financial management into the firm on my iPhone is amazing.
That's awesome for sure. You've maybe hinted at a couple of these already, but your favorite social distancing activity? What's something you're doing now that or you hadn't done in a while or before?
Right. Well, I would say it's cooking.
There you go.
And being in the kitchen in the evening and cooking dinner.
Yeah.
And so when if I ever do see my daughter again, which I hope she comes back from our ranch in the country when school starts back up or this summer, that we will be in the kitchen together in the evening.
Yeah.
And cooking. Awesome. And, going to the store and planning dinners. I've never really, I know a lot of families do that, but for me, that's going to be how we do things going forward.
That's awesome. And last one, your favorite legal movie?
Well, it is, might surprise you, but it's My Cousin Vinny.
No, it doesn't surprise me. Oh, it's a great one.
Isn't that awesome?
We love it.
It's when we're not in the drama and the throes of what we have to do every day, which can be pretty brutal, as you said earlier.
Yep.
It's nice to just watch, the Joe Pesci and the judge. And,
oh, yeah.
And actually, there's a couple of things he did in that movie that I've clipped and shown my young associates in some training exercises.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some, I think it's one of the, we did a deep dive of My Cousin Vinny on the podcast, about 2 months ago. We sprinkle in some legal movie deep dives. And it was the first one we did because we love it.
Amazing.
But as I was researching for that episode, it was funny to listen to a number of different legal either professors or scholars or practitioners who basically kind of said that was the movie that had some of the most realistic courtroom practice and some other things like that they were able to show to either students or to young lawyers. So that you're saying that doesn't surprise me.
Wow, I haven't seen that podcast. I'll have to go look for that. That's hilarious.
So, well, that's good. That's a good selection for sure. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. Wish you the best with your firm. And as we go through this crazy time, thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for having me. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. My thanks again to Stephanie Curtis for joining us on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, would you do 2 things for me? Number 1, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then secondly, if you would please rate and review the show in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. We haven't really pushed that before, but know that's important. And so if you have the opportunity and can do that, we would really appreciate it in iTunes or wherever you get podcasts to rate and review the show. And also, if you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, or if I could help you in any way, please email me directly, daniel@varsitysearch.com. All right, that's it for today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for listening. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.